Okay, we're up to Daf Lamed Zayin Amid Beis, 2 lines from the bottom. So the Gemara is talking about the obligation if you have an animal that's dying and you shecht it, it has to show signs of vitality. It has to have pirchus, to show some signs of vitality, to show that it died from the shechita and didn't die moments before the shechita. So Eshkechei Shmuel, a Talmud of Rav. Shmuel once met a Talmud of Rav. Amar Lahus, he said to the Talmud of Rav, "My Amar Rav b'Mesukenes." What did Rav say about this Mishnah? Tell me something from Rav, because they always used to go back and forth about it. So tell me something from Rav. So Amar Leh, they said to Shmuel, "Hachi Amar Rav." This is what Rav said. The following movements are signs of vitality and are needed. Goya is the animal like mooing, like the animal krechzing, yelling. Hitila reya, going to the bathroom. The shechshcha ba'azna, or wiggling its ears. Those are signs of vitality. Now, on a simple level, two things he's saying. He's saying that first of all, these are signs of vitality. Okay. Secondarily, these are needed. Meaning, if you don't show one of these, it's missing. Says the Gemara, Shmuel responded, Amrlu, Itzurcha l'Abba lazuzi uni. Abba, meaning Rav, that was like a nice nickname for Rav. He needs you to wiggle the ears. Meaning, why do you need all this? Shani Oimer, I believe, Kol she'enei dvarim shehamisa oisa. As long as he does some things that's more than just a natural spasm of death, meaning, you shech the animal and it has a spasm, it has a movement. A reflexology, a movement, that's not enough because that's not a sign that it died from the shechita. That's just a natural spasm. Anything more than that should be enough. You don't have to make it a wiggle of ears, not to go to the bathroom. Stam, any movement, as the Mishnah indicates, merely extending the arm could be enough. So Shmuel said to Rav, what do you need all these things? My ninu dvarim shamesa oisa. What is a natural spasm that happens through death that you need more than that? So Amar Ravanon said, Ravanon said, Shmuel explained to me as follows. If the animal's leg was bent and it extended it, davar shamei, that's not enough. Extending the leg is not enough. Pshuta v'kavava, however, if it was extended and it bent it, bending is not a spasm, and that's a sign of vitality. So if it's bent and it extends, that's a natural spasm of death. That's not a sign that it was alive. But straight bending, the opposite, is considered a sign of vitality. Dvarim she'ein ha'meisa oisa. No, while it's dying, while it's being shechted. So it says the Gemara, my Kamashon. So Ravanon is basically saying that if the animal's hand is bent and it extends, that's not enough. But if the opposite is enough, but if it extends, it's not enough. That's Mefurish in the Mishnah. So says the Gemara, my Kamashon, why does Ravanon have to say this in the name of Shmuel? It's Mefurish in the Mishnah. What does the Mishnah say? Tanina. The Mishnah says, Behema daka shepashli yada. If a small animal extends its leg, loy hechzira psula. That's not enough. She'enei eloi tzas nefesh. Hachzira ksheira. So it's deduction from the Mishnah is that extending is not enough, but bending is. So why did Ravanon have to say this in the name of Shmuel? It's Mefurish in the Mishnah. So says the Gemara, Ima Sisan. Ravanon would respond that if all you had was the Mishnah, Hava Amina Dafka de Kaifu Poshta Vada Kaifala. Aval Pshuta V'Kafaloi Kamash Malon. I'll tell you why you need Ravanon, because I could read the Mishnah that for it to be enough, it has to be bent, extend, and then bend. So you got to go 3 movements, like bend, extend, bend. Boom, boom, boom. However, if it's just extended and you bend, maybe that's not enough. I mean, the Mishnah says that if it's bending, it's enough, but it could be, it means it has to start off bent, extends the arm, then bends it again. But if it was merely extended and bending, maybe that's not enough. Comes Ravanon and he clarifies the Mishnah. Ravanon is not saying a chiddush, he's clarifying what the Mishnah means. Okay. Now, we said before that in the name of Rav, one of the signs of vitality is Goya, which is the animal like yelling out, like giving out a call. Hetila Reya, or going to the bathroom. If the animal goes to the bathroom, that's a sign that it's alive, because it's not a normal spasm of death. Says the Gemara, is that true? Meisve, I have a contradiction. Rav Yosi Oimer, Rav Yosi quotes the name Rameir. Goya b'shah shchita ein ze pirchas. Clear as day, not like Rav. That if the animal cries out when it's being shechted, that is not a sign of vitality. That is merely a spasm of death. So Rav says it is. Rameir said it's not. Similarly, Rav Loz, Rav Yosi Mishmaya, Afilu Hatil Re'ah, even going to the bathroom, B'shish Rav Azna, or wagging its tail, ein ze pirchas. Going to the bathroom is not pirchas. So Rav said that going to the bathroom and yelling out is The Brisa clearly says from Tanoim not like that. So what is going on? So the Gemara says kasha koya goya kasha rea rea. So we have a contradiction by calling out and going to the bathroom. So is it a sign of vitality or not? So the Gemara says very simple. Goya goya like kasha. Calling out is not a contradiction. Hoda avikola, hoda amikola. It depends what type of sound it gives off. If it gives off a strong, full-voiced, moo from a cow, that's a sign of vitality. A little bit of a whisper, calling out, that's not enough. So it depends on what type of sound is omitted. And rea rea namili kasha. Similarly, going to the bathroom, kam b'sheiseses, kam mazreches. If the excrement just drips out of the animal, that's a natural sign of death. If it shoots out of the animal, mamish going to the bathroom, that's a sign of vitality. Okay. Rav Chizda. Okay. So this is going to be a discussion that's going to take us to the next Mishnah, and that is what parts of the shechita what is the sign of vitality needed? That's what you were asking. Beginning of the shechita? Is it enough it's in the middle of shechita? Does it have to show the vitality after the shechita, as the shechita is ending, the second the shechita is ending, it shows that sign of vitality? At what point is it? So it says the Gemara, Rav Chizda, Pircha she'amru b'sayv shechita. Rav Chizda says the pirchas that we're referring to, it has to be b'sayv shechita, meaning after the shechita is over, immediately following the shechita, the animal has to show the vitality. If it shows that at the beginning of the shechita, it's not enough, because maybe the beginning of the shechita was alive, but by the time the shechita ended, it was already dead. So the signs of vitality must be shown at the end of shechita. My b'sayv shechita, it says the Gemara, no. What did he mean when he said sayv shechita b'emsa shechita? He really meant even in the middle, meaning there's the beginning, middle, and end. When he said the sign of vitality has to be at the end, he doesn't actually mean the end. He means even in the middle, as all he meant was to exclude the beginning. Beginning of shechita, it's not enough. Rav Chizda said, how do we know that showing a sign of vitality at the beginning is not enough? The Mishnah said, again, Rav Chizda is saying that you have to show sign of vitality. It doesn't have to be at the end, not in the beginning, even in the middle. But it doesn't have to be at the very end. The middle is also enough. How do I know this? Because, by the way, I would say that if you want to be machmer, you have to show it at the end. Right? As the animal's dying, mamish, after the shechita is done, then there has to be a sign of vitality. Before, maybe not. Says Chizda, no, I'll prove it to you, it's not true. Why? Because what did the Mishnah say? What's a sign of vitality? The Mishnah says that if an animal just extends its arm, a small animal extends its arm, but doesn't bend it back, it's no good. Because that's a natural spasm of death. So says Gemara, Amos, when is that not a sign? If it's at the sayv shechita, kol heichi teicha v'teisel. I don't understand. You need the animal to show. Meaning, at the end, when am I looking for vitality signs? At the end of shechita. So Gemara said, what? It's got to keep walking. Meaning, at some point, the animal's going to die. In other words, the Chizda is just saying misvara. It doesn't make sense that you should have to look for signs of vitality after the shechita is over, because at some point. Like, what do you want it to do? Like, you shech the animal, right? It's jerking around throughout the shechita. The shechita is over, it stopped jerking. You're like, well, it's probably dying. Well, you shechted it. Like, at some point. So rather, says the Gemara, Elav be'emsa shechita. No, so it must be, meaning he's saying misvara. It doesn't make sense that when the shechita is over, the animal should still have to be moving around. It makes more sense that it has to be middle shechita. To that, the Gemara responds, Amar le Rava said to Chizda, Lo'ilam b'sayv shechita. No, maybe it has to be sayv shechita, and Shani Omer, Kol Sheina Oisakim, b'sayv shechita, b'yadush, and Shmasa Tuleim, and Akayim L'chayim. And Rabbi responds, maybe Taka has to show sign of vitality as the shechita is ending. You'll say, but why? The answer is because this animal was dying before. You're right, this is not a healthy animal. This is an animal that's dying before, and I need to make sure that its life left it because of the shechita. And yes, maybe you talk, meaning like Rav Chizda is saying, misvara, I can't imagine it has to have pirchos at the end of shechita. And Rabbi says, I could see it requiring pirchos at the end of shechita. Why not? You'll say, well, at some point it has to stop. Yeah, after shechita, it doesn't have to move anymore. As shechita is ending, it has to move. We have to ensure this animal did not die from old age or from pain. It had to be that it died from the shechita. Rav Nachman Yitzchak says slightly different. He has a different shechita. Pirchas shamu b'tchila shechita. He says, I got to tell you, you don't need the pirchas to be at the middle or the end. The beginning is enough. Let me explain outside his raya, and I think it's a good raya. Think of Shechita has three different parts. It's the first 33%, the middle 33%, the end 33%. Says Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak, the first 33% is enough. Meaning, there is no, as long as it moves at any point during the Shechita, you're good. Because let's say the other, Rav Chizda. Rav Chizda would tell you that if it moves during the first 33%, no good. It has to be middle to the end. He's saying no, any point. I'll prove it to you. What did the Mishnah say? The Mishnah had three shitas. This is important to understand. The Mishnah had three shitas. Rishon Gamliel, who says that for Pirchos, the animal has to move the hind leg and the foreleg. Both. The Rabbanon, who say one's enough. And then Rav Eliezer, as the Gemara is going to prove, is the most lenient. And he says zinuk. As long as the blood sprays out, that's enough. Fine. Then the Gemara says Rav Shimon. The Mishnah said Rav Shimon. What did Rav Shimon say? I shecht an animal at night. Right? I don't know that the blood sprayed out because I couldn't see it. The next day, I go to the animal, and if I see on the neck splatter marks, not the walls. It doesn't have to be the walls. The Gemara is going to explain the splatting on the kaisel is not the walls. It's not a horror movie. It's the neck. As long as there's splatter marks on the neck, that shows that it's sprayed. So let me ask you a question. That's a sign of pirchas. I didn't see it at the time because it was night. I only saw it the next day. If there's a point in the shechita where pirchas is no good, if it needs to be, let's say, the last end of the shechita or the middle to the end, then how could I check the next day? So the next day I show that it was zinuk, it splattered. But if you're telling me that signs of pirchos have to be, let's say, the last third of the shechita, then maybe it's splattered in the first third. It only works if that sign of pirchos is legitimate for every moment of the shechita. So then as long as it happens, I don't care when, then it's kosher. So if the next day I could prove with forensic evidence that it happened at one point because there's splatter marks on the neck, okay, fine. But if you're telling me it's not just that it has to happen at a specific time. It's got to be the end of shechita. So then how am I checking the next day? Poshut. It's a very poshut arai. Says the Gemara, how do I know this? That a sign of pirchos works at any point in the shechita to Tanan, because the Mishnah says Amar Rav Shimon. Because Rav Shimon follows that zinka is all you need, which is the splattering, and that's following the shita of Rav Eliezer. Shmuel. And Shmuel clarifies when it says the splattering, it's not the splattering on the walls, it's on the neck. So you saw splatter marks on the neck. So that means that there was zinka. So, and I didn't see it at the time, but I see it the next day. Now, if you tell me that at any moment, any part of the shechita, a sign of vitality is enough, I don't care when, so fine, the next day I can prove it happened. As long as it happened, it's kosher. But if you tell me that this pirchas, this zinuk, which is a sign of pirchos, which is a sign of vitality, must happen at certain points in the shechita. And if it happens at other points, it's not valid. It has to be at the end of shechita, not the beginning of shechita. So how do I know that it happened at the end of shechita? Maybe it happened at the beginning of shechita, and it's no good. So it must be signs of pirchos can happen at any point in the shechita. Now the Gemara says, I'll tell you outside, then we'll see it inside. The Gemara says maybe pirchos generally, which is extending of the forearm or going to the bathroom or yelling, maybe that has to be at a specific time in the shechita. And maybe zinuk, splattering, is the highest form of vitality. It's such a stark sign of vitality even in the beginning. Meaning, you're bringing a raya that signs of pirchos can work at any point in the shechita from the splattering of blood. The splattering of blood, it's clear as day, it's a knockout raya, it can happen at any point and it's kosher. So we're saying all signs of pirchos, vitality, movement of the arms, also at any point. The Gemara says maybe zinuk is different. Maybe zinuk is such a strong sign of vitality. It's such an A+ sign, it works even in the beginning. Meaning maybe normally pirchos has to be at the end, but zinuk is different. And the Gemara is going to respond, the lashon doesn't work, because let me read you the lashon of the Mishnah. You're telling me that zinuk is the highest form of vitality? Look at the Mishnah. The Mishnah says daya im zinka. Daya means it's enough. It's enough. It's not such a start. If I tell you you need A+, and then you say, okay, it's enough to get a C. It's not better than A+, yeah? So when Rav Shimon Gamliel says that you need pirchos of the arm and the leg, Rav Eliezer says daya im zinka. Daya im zinka means it's not such a stark vitality sign. And the Gemara is going to clarify, don't tell me that Rav Eliezer's shita of zinka is that it's maybe less than Rav Shimon Gamliel, but it's more than the Rabbanon. It's not true, because the Rabbanon's response to Rav Eliezer is ad shetifarches. Ad shetifarches means, you said a shita, I need more than that. You said zinc is enough? Ad. I need more than that. I need a little bit more. Indicating that the flow of the Mishnah, while it's not written in that way, is that the highest form of vitality is Rosh Gamliel, arm and leg. Then the Rabbanon, just an arm or a leg. then Rabbi Eliezer Zinka, which means Zinka is the lowest form of vitality. And still that could work at any point in the Shechita, because I could be able to check the next day based on forensics. So evidently, any sign of vitality works at any point in the Shechita. Kavachoymer Pirchas. Says the Gemara, V'dil mashani zinuk to adif. The Gemara says, Mi adif, how could you say that zinuk is stronger of signs of vitality? But it's not. Rabbi Eliezer medaya im zinka. Daya means it's enough. It's not a stronger vitality. Adarab, it's like, it's new, it's yoytzazayim. It says the Gemara, Kal midr Rabbanan v'adav midr Kal midr Gamliel v'adav midr Rabbanan. Maybe zinka is in between, meaning it's still a strong sign of vitality. It's just in between Rosh Gamliel and the Rabbanan. Maybe it's Rosh Gamliel, hand and a leg. Then Rabbi Eliezer Zinka, then Rabbanan, hand or leg. The Gemara says it's not true. Amar Ravina, Amar Lisama Bar Chilkiya, Aksheba Avua de Bar Avurhum, the father of Bar Abuvram, which means Abuvram's son was named Abuvram. So his father is Bar Abuvram, because they were juniors. Whatever. The Kitzer, V'amr la'achua de Bar Abuvram, the Rabbanan mi'odef otanan, the Chacham, I'm actually tefarchis oi bi'ade beregel. The Rabbanan said it's enough. You have to do it ad. You need to give me something. Give me a hand or a leg. Now, Rabbanan haikaimu. Who are the Rabbanan commenting on? Ilei madar of Gamliel, kiven shepirchas and miboy. It can't be the Rav Gamliel. They're what? Rav Gamliel said you need a hand and a leg, and they say, give me Rav Gamliel says you need both, and then Rabbanan is saying, give me one or the other. What do you give me one or the other? They're being lenient. Their lashon implies they're being machmer. Ad means, it's like, how much do I have to, study for the test? Give me 3 hours. Like, you want to do less? Give me ad. Ad implies more. So it can't be the Rabbanan commenting on Rav Gamliel, because he's the most machmer. So rather, it must be Pshita the Rav Eliezer, the Adif Mayad. So it must be the Rav Eliezer, and the flow is, Zinuk is the least amount of Pirchus. It's the least sign of vitality, and still it works at any point. Okay, Rabbi has another third opinion, Pirchus she'amru b'sayv Shechita. The Pirchus is even at the end of Shechita. Okay, actually it must take place at the end of Shechita, not even. It must take place at the end of Shechita. Okay, now this next raya is going to take us to the Mishnah. It's an interesting raya. Okay, I'll explain it we'll as we do it. How do I know that the sign of vitality must be at the end of Shechita? Meaning, and if it doesn't show signs of vitality end of Shechita, it's a dead animal. It's an avela. Titania, as the Brisa says. Go to the next page. The Brisa is referring to different animals that are roy for a carbon and different animals that are not roy for a carbon. The point of this Brisa is the last case. We'll go through it. Oy kesev, or a sheep, prat l'klayim. It can't be a hybrid. It can't be an animal that came from a goat and a sheep. No good. That's a klayim, no good for as a carbon. Oy eiz, or a goat, prat l'nidma. It has to look like a goat. If for whatever reason, 2 goats have a baby, and the baby looks like a cow, no good. It has to look like the species. So far, this is not relevant. Ki yivaled mean prat l'yoytze daifin. That's referring to excluding a cesarean section. Now, you cannot have a baby that was born through cesarean section be a carbon. An animal that was born through C-section is no good. Now, let me just clarify one point. The reason why they would do a C-section for a cow is not to make it easier on the mother. It's not like it is now. They're doing it because the mother died. Basically, if the mother dies, bekitzer, if the mother dies, or the mother is dying, and they can't get the baby out, they would cut the cow open to get the cow out. So it's no good. Okay, so you've excluded a C-section. Then it says, Shivas Yamim, Prat L'Mechusas Man. The baby has to be 7 days old. Okay, and this is the line that we're going to focus on. Tachas Imai Prat L'Yasam. It has to have a mother. Prat L'Yasam, a baby that's an orphan animal cannot be a carbon. Now, okay, let's talk about that for a second. What do I mean that if the baby is an orphan, it can't be a carbon? All animals are orphans at some point because they eat the mom, they eat the dad. It's not what you mean to bring a carbon. I have to make sure that its parents are still alive. That can't be. Says the Gemara. If the mother gave birth and then the mother subsequently died or was killed, you can't bring it as a carbon. It needs to have parents that are 100 years old. It's a cow. It's a cow. So what are we talking about? So what does it mean that it can't have that it doesn't make sense. It's not logical. It's impossible. It's impossible to have it that the only carbonas can have parents who are alive. It doesn't make sense. It's an impossibility. So it says the Gemara, okay, that's not what it means. Maybe what it means is that if the animal dies and then it's born, so it never had a parent, it's no good. Here's the problem with that. I agree with that, but that's under the C-section case. Meaning, if the mommy cow dies and then the baby's born subsequently from a dead cow, that's already going to be excluded because of the C-section case. What's the C-section case? The C-section case is the mommy died, they cut open the mommy and took the baby out. Right? The mother can't push the baby out when the mother's dead. So if the C-section excludes where the mother died before birth. So what exactly is the Yasam case excluding? It can't be excluding where the mother gave birth and then died 10 days later because it was enough. I don't care what happens to the mother afterwards. It doesn't make sense. That's out. It can't be where the mother died before birth because that's included in the C-section miyut. So what is this miyut coming to exclude? Says the Gemara, El Demesav Adilita Kivali Nafka, El Pshita Zepir Shlemisav Zepir Shlachan. It must be the talk in the following case. Okay, let's just speak this out. The mother dies before birth. That's excluded by the C-section, miyut. The case of Yivalid Prat Liyasam, there's three stages. Yeah. Died before birth, that's already not eligible as a carbon because of C-section. Okay. Died after birth, that's eligible because that's life. Okay. Cows give birth, and then subsequently they turn into meat. That's life. That's not excluded at all. What is the pasuk excluding with Yasam? It's excluding they died at the same time. If the mother died as the baby was born, at the same time that the birth happened, the mother died, that's excluded from Yasam. So if the mother died before, that's excluded from the C-section. The mother died after, that's eligible. The exclusion is the mother died at the moment of birth. Okay, here's the point. That's the conclusion of the Brisa. Now, as the mother dies as the baby's born. So, now, what does it have to do with our discussion? Says the Gemara, it's like this. At what point does the animal have to show signs of vitality for it to be a living animal? If the animal has to show signs of vitality at the end of birth, at the end of Shechita, so as the Shechita is happening, at the end of Shechita has to show signs of vitality, and if not, then it's a dead animal, then it makes sense. If the animal dies before Shechita, the baby is excluded from the C-section. If the animal dies b'soif Shechita, so as Soif Shechita, the animal no longer shows signs of vitality, and now it's established at that moment, it showed sign of vitality before, it doesn't matter. Now it doesn't show sign of vitality, so now it died. So now it's excluded because of the Yasam. But if you're telling me that signs of vitality are dictated by the beginning of Shechita, meaning at the beginning of Shechita, if it's shown signs of vitality, it's alive, but if not. So that means that the case, it did not show signs of vitality at the beginning, which means at the beginning of Shechita, it's already dead. So then it's excluded from the C-section case. In other words, the C-section case covers all cases of death till Soif Shechita. So it must be the signs of vitality are dictated by Soif Shechita. Bekitzer. Okay, just to finish up the sugya, the Gemara says, Amarava Hilchasa Ki Hamasisa. The halacha is like the following brisa. What's the following brisa? Behemadaka, a small animal, Shapasha Yada, that extends its hand, V'leich Zir, but does not retract it. Psula, not enough. Bamed Vorm Biyad, right? That's the Mishnah. Extending the hand for a behemadaka is not enough, but says the Gemara, Bamed Vorm, when is this true? Biyad, with the foreleg, meaning the hand. Aval Berego, with the leg. Bein pashta v'lei kfafa, bein kfafa v'lei pashta kshera. Any movement of the leg is kosher. Animals extend the hand as a spasm of death. They don't extend the leg as a spasm of death. Bamed varmamur. When is this true? Bedaka, with a small animal like a sheep or a goat. Aval bagasa, but a bull or an ox. Bein biyad, bein meregel, bein pashta v'lei kfafa, bein kfafa v'lei pashta kshera. By a large animal, doesn't matter whether it extends the hand and retracts it and not extends it, hand or leg, any movement is a sign of vitality. Now, can I just pause for 1 second? I know all of this. This is all mafresh in our Mishnah. This has not been, nothing should be new from right now. But, Zak the Brisa, a new thing. Oif, regarding a chicken, even if it just fluttered its wings, or wagged its tail, apparently, birds just die. So the fact that any movement of a bird wagging of the tail, moving of the feathers, that is already a sign of vitality. Okay, so the Gemara is Akasha. What do you need this brisa for? Don't I already know the Mishnah? So the Gemara is going to answer, the Chiddush of this brisa is the bird part. The bird part is the only thing that's not clarified in the Mishnah. It says, Gemara Ma'ikamash Malon, Kula Tanina. Everything is already clarified in the Mishnah. Behema Daksha Pashi Yad V'Leich Zir Psula, Shein Alay Tzas HaNevesh, Yad in Regaloi, Gasa, Daka in Gasaloi. All of this I could deduce from the Mishnah. So the Gemara says, Oif Itzrach Alay Delay Tanan. The only thing you need from the Mishnah is the chicken case. Okay. New Mishnah, and the Mishnah is dealing with the following premise. I'm a shaychit, a guy comes over to me, owns an animal, and he wants me to shecht it. He, for whatever reason, wants it halal, and he wants it, he wants it to be shechted properly. I shecht it. The question is, can I eat the animal if he offers it to me? What does it have to do with anything? This is a sugya, as we'll see, where you have an animal that's owned by A, the guy, but shechted by B, the Jew. Goyim, when they shech, generally thought about avodah zarah. So therefore, the animal has a status of a carbon of avodah zarah. It's asa b'hana. But the guy wasn't the shaychet. I was the shaychet. So the question is, do we go by my machshava, which is not avodah zarah, or do you go by the owner's machshava? And all the details of that. So let's see the Mishnah. The Mishnah has three opinions, and the Gemara will clarify what exactly is the machlokes. Number one, hashaychet lo v'kechav. I, a Jew, shecht a cow for a guy that's owned by a guy. Shchitas kshera. The Tana Kama says it's kosher. The Tana Kama starts off kosher. Rav Eliezer Paisor, Rav Eliezer says no good. If it's owned by a guy, no good, because the owner's machshava is a problem. Now, where do we see, says Rav Eliezer, that the owner's machshava could be an issue? Rav Eliezer, afilu shachta lech lo v'kechavim mechatzer kavit shalah. And Rav Eliezer clarifies, even if the Jew shechting did not have avodah zarah thoughts, I'm shechting thinking that he's going to eat it. Psula, it's still possible. Shestam machsheves oivik kechavim avodah zarah, because the guy stam machshava of goyim is for avodah zarah, and therefore when you shecht it, the guy is thinking avodah zarah. So Rav Eliezer clearly cares about the owner's machshava, even though he's not the one doing the avodah. He's not the one shechting it. Comes the Mishnah and says Rav Yossi. Again, the Tana Kama says kosher, Rav Eliezer says puzzle, and then Rav Yossi is going to say kosher. Obviously, Rav Yossi is very similar to the Tana Kama, so we have to explain there is a subtle nuance. But Rav Yossi clarifies, and I'll say it out, so we'll say it inside. Rav Yossi says like this, I'll prove it to you that Rav Eliezer is wrong. What's Rav Eliezer's premise? The guy owner, I'm shechting, but the guy had bad thoughts, that's a problem. Let me ask you a question. In the Beis HaMikdash, yeah, who can make pigul? The Kohen. The Kohen's doing the avodah. He's thinking the right thing. I'm thinking pigul. You know what it does? Nothing. And I'm the owner. And that's in the Beis HaMikdash. So I don't care about the owner. All you care about is the one who's doing it. So says Rav Yossi, Rav Yossi, Kavachomer Advarim, Uma b'makom shamachshava poselos b'mukdashim. When it comes to the Beis HaMikdash, where machshava definitely is a very important factor, Ein hakol hoylech el achar ovid. I don't care about the owner. If I'm the kohen and I'm doing an avodah and I go over to the owner's like, I was thinking pickle thoughts the whole time. You know what I tell him? Okay, it's weird that you did that. I don't care though. I didn't, and it's kosher. Then makom she'ein machshava b'sels b'chulin. So we're talking about chulin, where yes, machshava could be an issue by avodah zarah, but it's not a generally high factor. So by chulin, where machshava doesn't really matter, all that should matter is the one who's shechting. Okay, so you have Tana Kama says kosher, Rav Eliezer says puzzle, Rav Yossi says kosher. What exactly is the machlokos? What's the case, and what are the three opinions? So the Gemara clarifies two different options. Hani Tanai, the Gemara says option number one is both the first two Tanaim, Rav Tana Kama and Rav Eliezer, hold Islay de Rav Eliezer Rav Yossi. They follow Rav Eliezer Rav Yossi. The Tanya Rav Eliezer Rav Yossi Shamati Shabayla Mefaglin. Meaning, here's the evolution of the machlokes. The first version of the machlokes is as follows: you're the guy. You come over. You give me the animal, and I say, "You have any thoughts? You have?" And you're like, "No." I'm like, "What's this for?" And you're like, I'm hungry. Nothing. No, you don't mention any avodah zarah. I shecht it. The question is, can the animal be eaten? The Tana Kama says yes. Now the Tana Kama agrees, according to this version, the Tana Kama would agree, if you, the owner, would think avodah zarah, it would be a problem. But the Tana Kama's version is, why am I looking for avodah zarah thoughts? Stam machsheves avodah kacham eino le'avodah zarah. That's the Tana Kama. To that, Rav Eliezer says, you agree with me if he had bad thoughts, it's a problem. So the Tanna Kama says yes. So Rabbi Eliezer says, Goyim always have to think avodah zarah. So they both agree that the owner can invalidate. The machlokes is pashit. If he didn't mention it, do we assume he's thinking avodah zarah? To that comes Rav Yossi, a third opinion, and he says, even if he thought avodah zarah, I don't care what the owner thought, I care about the shochet. So the first version of the machlokes is where the owner did not express any intent that he was thinking about the Zara. The Tanna Kama therefore says it's fine. Rav Eliezer says it's a problem. The Tanna Kama would agree it would be an issue had the owner mentioned that intent. To that, Rav Yossi comes in a third sheet and he's like, I don't care about the owner at all. So see it inside. Rav Eliezer, Rav Yossi, Shemati Shabag Mefaglin. Rav Eliezer, Rav Yossi feels that the owners can have pigul intent. Both Tanna Kama and Rav Eliezer agree that the owner can invalidate. Miu Tanna Kama savar, isha mina dechashavini lolo. The Tanna Kama responds, if you hear the owner saying it, fine, but if not, not. Meaning in this case, the owner, the guy, never mentioned avodah zarah. To that, stam achshavas avakam lavos kam lo amrina. We don't say that the stam achshav of a guy is for avodah zarah. To that, Rav Eliezer responds, avagav deloisha mina dechashav. Even to that, Rav Eliezer responds, you don't have to. The guy doesn't have to mention avodah zarah. Stam goyim always think about avodah zarah when it comes to animals. Stam Hashem zavi kam avodah zarah. To that, Rav Yossi comes in and he says, "Bas Rav Yossi lemeimar afa gav deshamina dechashiv." Even if the guy is screaming all day long, avodah zarah, avodah zarah, avodah zarah, still zeh mechashev zeh oved lo amrinon. This concept of you doing a service and him having mashava is not a thing. So, and just finish up. The first version of the machlokas is the guy did not express any intent. Tanna Kama therefore feels it's fine. Rav Eliezer still feels it's an issue, and that Rav Yossi says even if he had expressed intent, it would be okay. To that, the Gemara says Ikadamri. Some have a slightly different version. We'll end with this. According to this version, the machlokes Tanna Kama and Rav Yossi and Rav Eliezer is dafka where he said the expressed intent. Meaning, according to this version, the guy comes over, hands you the animal, and says, "I'm thinking of avodah zarah," and you're like, "I'm not, bro." The guy's like, "I am." To that, the Tanna Kama says it's fine. Why? Tanna Kama savar ki amrina zeh mechashev zeh oved. Tanna Kama says, I agree it would be an issue in the Beis Hamikdash. Meaning, if it was pigul, he follows the shita of Rav Eliezer, Rav Yossi, that in the Beis Hamikdash it would be an issue. The kohen doing it, but with the owner having pigul of thoughts, would be a problem. To that, the Tanna Kama says, but that's true in the Beis Hamikdash, not outside the Beis Hamikdash. In the Beis Hamikdash, zeh oved v'zeh mechashev is a thing, but not by avodah zarah outside of the Beis Hamikdash. To that, hani mili b'fnim avu chutz lo. Chutz mefrim lo yaminu. We don't compare the laws of the Beis Hamikdash to outside the Beis Hamikdash. To that, Rav Eliezer lemeimar yalfina chutz mefrim. Rav Eliezer says we do learn out from the Beis Hamikdash. Meaning, in the Beis Hamikdash, if the kohen is doing it and the owner have bad thoughts, both the Tanna Kama and Rav Eliezer agree it's an issue. The machlokes is, do we extend that to avodah zarah outside of the Beis Hamikdash? And then comes Rav Yossi lemeimar afilu b'fnei nami zeh mechashev zeh amrina. To that, Rav Yossi says even in the Beis Hamikdash it's not a thing. Your whole premise is that in the Beis Hamikdash, the owner's machshavas pigul would invalidate it, and the question is, do you extend that outside the Beis Hamikdash? To that, Rav Yossi says, I don't believe that's a thing even in the Beis Hamikdash. Even in the Beis Hamikdash, we don't care about anyone other than the kohen who's doing the avodah, kal v'chomer to avodah zarah outside the Beis Hamikdash. All right, stop it.